Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground in Mexico, which may give a better understanding of the Maya civilization.
Ancient DNA pulled from the bones of the first Maya king does not match a single Maya bloodline on record. The body lay sealed beneath the floor of Caracol's palace in Belize, jade mask intact, the founder of an entire dynasty waiting 1,700 years for someone to ask the right question.
Certainly, this is the most important finding in my career. It has really a huge implication for the understanding of development of Maya civilization.
Pressed directly above him, excavators hit a layer of cremated bone mixed with volcanic glass, sourced to a city 1,000 miles away. That layer was sealed decades before central Mexico's famous entrada at Tikal in 378 CE, the moment every textbook says this kind of contact began. So, who exactly is in this tomb? The mask in the dark. The mask comes up in pieces, dozens of jadeite fragments, each the size of a fingernail, fitted by hand into the face of a king. Shell teeth still sit in the mouth. The eyes still hold their pupils. The jade itself talks before the bones do. Geochemical analysis traces it to the Motagua Valley in Guatemala, the single source prized by Maya rulers for its hardness and its luminous green hue. Stone from this one valley moved across the Maya world like currency. To wear it on your face in death was to declare, without words, that you sat at the very top. 11 painted ceramic vessels form a silent circle around the body. The merchant god Ekchua strides across one, cacao pods spilling at his feet. The rain god Chak summons storms across another, several show-bound captives kneeling, frozen in the moment of ritual defeat. A Maya court would recognize every symbol: the mask, the deities, the captives, the jade. The man inside is a king, and he is being sent into the next world dressed for it. And then the chamber starts breaking the rules. The layer that did not belong. The trowel hits something that is not stone. The fill changes texture, suddenly soft and gray when the brush passes over it. The excavators pause. Under the lights, the surface resolves into ash and shattered bone, packed down hard, layered as deliberately as the limestone above it. Fragments of skull glint white against the carbon. The fire that did this burned hot enough to warp the bone and turn organic material to fine gray powder. Someone in the trench says the word out loud before anyone else does. Cremation. The whole crew knows what that means in this context, and they know it should not be here. This was not contamination. It was a closing rite, and it sat directly above a Maya king. Maya kings of this era do not get cremated. They get laid out intact, dressed in jade, surrounded by goods. Cremation in the early classic period belongs to one place: Teotihuacan, the great metropolis sitting nearly 1,000 miles to the northwest, in the highlands of central Mexico. Burning the dead at the highest levels of society is a Teotihuacan signature, the kind of practice you find in the apartments of central Mexican elites, not pressed against the body of a Maya founder in Belize. Mixed into the charred remains, archaeologists pull out fragments of green obsidian. Geochemical analysis traces the volcanic glass to the slopes near Teotihuacan itself, not to the Guatemalan highlands closer to home. Green obsidian from this region is the most reliable marker of central Mexican contact in all of Mesoamerican archaeology. When it shows up in a deposit, the deposit has a connection to Teotihuacan, and the connection is not casual. A polished mirror catches the light beside the ash. Black, flawless, cut and tessellated from iron pyrite. Mirrors like this appear in Teotihuacan's painted murals, strapped to the chests of warriors, signaling status, divine sight, and access to the supernatural. It did not belong here. And then comes the date that makes the whole thing impossible. The accepted story of Teotihuacan's intervention in the Maya world centers on 378 CE, the entrada. Central Mexican forces are believed to have toppled the king of Tikal in that year and reshaped lowland politics. Every textbook timeline of Maya Teotihuacan contact starts there. Before the entrada, the lowlands are supposed to be doing their own thing. This burial was sealed decades before the entrada. The cremation layer, the green obsidian, the pyrite mirror, the Teotihuacan signature, all of it was already in place when the entrada had not yet happened. The conventional model of who reached out to whom and when runs out of road. Veteran Mayanist Arlen Chase has cautioned against reading this as conquest. He has urged researchers to stop picturing Teotihuacan as an army and start picturing a world of shifting alliances, where the founders of cities like Caracol moved among distant powers, not under them. The 1,000-mile gap suddenly feels much smaller. The stakes climb fast. How does Central Mexican ritual end up sealed above a Maya founder's bones, before Central Mexico is supposed to be there at all? The simplest answers all break down on contact with the evidence. Trade alone does not explain a cremation rite. A diplomatic gift does not explain mourners burning bodies above your grave. Borrowed symbols do not arrive without people to carry them. The objects can be imported. The ritual cannot. If you have ever wondered who actually built the great Maya cities, and whether the answer has been hiding in DNA, the textbooks never mentioned, hit subscribe. We chase the founders the official story cannot explain, the tombs that arrive a generation too early, the layers of ash that are not supposed to be there. Now back to the lab work that pinned this king to a generation, because before the DNA could answer anything, the date had to be locked down beyond doubt. The numbers come back. 2 charcoal samples leave the tomb's primary fill and shipped to the University of Arizona's Accelerator Mass Spectrometry Lab. The samples pass through cleaning, combustion, and isotope counting. Weeks later, the numbers come back. 815 plus or minus 30, radiocarbon years before present. 822 plus or minus 32, calibrated against the standard curve. Both samples land in a tight window between 330 and 350 CE, with over 95% confidence. There is no ambiguity. This burial belongs to the early Classic period. It predates the entrada by a full generation. The man in the chamber was already in the ground, sealed under stone, before the Central Mexican intervention at Tikal even happened. Ceramic specialist Dr. Maria Gonzalez reviews the 11 painted vessels independently. Her conclusion matches the radiocarbon dates. The vessel forms and painted motifs belong to the Caracol Classic around 280 to 380 CE. The vessel forms, she says, are unequivocal for this horizon. 2 methods, 2 sets of evidence, same generation. That generation has a name in Caracol's later inscriptions. Tikal, the founder, the man whose dynasty would eventually rule one of the largest Maya cities in the southern lowlands, and rival the great power of Tikal itself. Every step of the analysis narrows the story to a single life, the dynasty's beginning, and the position of the tomb is about to make the point unmissable. A founder's place. Caracol's palace acropolis sprawls across the Belizean highlands like a stone city in its own right. The tomb sits at the northernmost edge of the palace platform. In Maya city planning, that position is not casual, it is reserved. A burial in this spot announces the man inside as the source from which everything else flows. Excavation records and trench maps tell a layered story. The chamber was sealed beneath a second stone floor and then buried under generations of monumental construction. Each new platform pressed down on the chamber below. Each new wall anchored itself to the founder beneath. The defensive walls of the Acropolis came later. The tomb came first. The order matters. The order is the proof. Every later king who sat on a throne above this chamber drew legitimacy from it. To stand inside the later Acropolis was to stand on top of him, literally, and that was the point. A Maya king's authority in this period was not inherited from a piece of paper. It was inherited from a body sealed beneath the floor of the room where you held court. Successors built around the founder. They did not move him. They did not ignore him. They let his bones do the political work. The man in the chamber is not just a king, he is the king, the first one. And the city built 3 centuries of royal history directly on top of his bones. Objects from a wider world. The chamber gives up other evidence of foreign reach, sitting alongside the body itself. A cache of spondylus shells rests near the skeleton, their orange-pink sheen unmistakable even after 17 centuries underground. Spondylus does not occur near Caracol. These shells traveled from the Pacific coast, more than 1,000 kilometers across rivers, valleys, and forests. The species had to be dived for in cold Pacific waters by specialists who treated it as nearly sacred, then carried inland through middlemen across multiple language groups. By the time a single shell reached Caracol, it had passed through more hands than most Maya commoners would meet in a lifetime. 2 ceramic lids, each topped with the sculpted head of a coatamundi, guard smaller caches. The coatamundi is a nocturnal animal, in Maya thought tied to the underworld and the boundary between living and dead. The lids are local limestone, but their style echoes forms seen at Lubantun and across the lowlands. Pacific shells, underworld animals, highland Mexican obsidian, a jade mask sourced to a single Guatemalan valley. Every artifact in this tomb is a clue to a man at the center of a network that already crossed mountains and seas. Decades before, the textbooks say those connections were possible at this scale. The only question left is whether the network ran through him, or whether he came in along it. Inside the lab. A long way from the jungle, technicians begin the work that will answer that question. A fragment of the king's petrous bone sits in a sealed tube. The petrous bone is the densest bone in the human body. It protects the inner ear, and that protection is exactly why it preserves DNA so well. While the rest of a buried skeleton breaks down, the petrous holds. If any part of the skeleton is going to talk, this is the part. The protocol is brutal. Clean suits, filtered air, ultraviolet sterilization. Every instrument swabbed before and after. A single stray cell from a modern human, a flake of skin, a strand of hair, a breath against an open tube can ruin the result. Contamination control governs every motion. The bone fragment is ground in a sealed mill, run through buffers, and pulled through a silica-based extraction that captures fragmented DNA while leaving organic contaminants behind. Double-index sequencing libraries get built so every read can be tracked back to its source, ready to flag any drift in the reagents or the room. Then comes the test for authenticity. Real ancient DNA carries a fingerprint of damage that builds up over centuries. At the ends of each fragment, cytosine bases convert into uracil through a process called deamination. The signature cannot be faked by modern contamination. It appears in the data. The DNA is real. It is old. It is his. In a separate lab, a tooth gets sampled for strontium and oxygen isotopes. Tooth enamel forms in childhood and locks in the chemical signature of the local water and soil where a person grew up. Enamel does not remodel. Whatever signal it carries is the signal of the place where the king spent his earliest years, untouched by every move he made later. If the strontium matches the limestone bedrock of the Maya lowlands, he was raised local. If it matches the volcanic geology of central Mexico, he was raised somewhere very different and arrived in Belize as an adult. Two independent lines of evidence are now in motion. Either one alone would be enough to make headlines. Two stories, one genome. Two scenarios stand before the scientific team. In the first, the genome clusters with lowland Maya populations, the same people whose descendants still live in the region today. The Teotihuacan artifacts in the tomb shift in meaning. They become evidence of alliance, exchange, prestige, adopted from a powerful neighbor. But the king himself stays firmly Maya. The dynasty is local. The foreign objects are diplomacy. The cremation layer becomes a foreign rite performed by foreign mourners or local elites who had picked up the practice. Strange, but explainable. In the second, the genome points somewhere else. If the king's DNA matches highland Mexican profiles, the founder's story cracks open. Caracol's first dynasty is not a homegrown lineage that picked up foreign fashions. It is something far stranger, a royal house seeded from distant power. A foreign founder placed at the head of a Maya city decades before the entrada, his bones laid down in a tomb that future Maya kings would build their throne room on top of. Push that implication harder. 3 centuries of Caracol rulers trace their authority back to him. Stele carved in his memory. Inscriptions invoking his name as the source of legitimate power. Sons, grandsons, great-grandsons sitting on thrones that drew their meaning from the body and the floor below them. If the founder was an outsider, every one of those later kings was ruling in the name of a man who did not start out as one of them. Every dedication ceremony, every ancestor invocation, every claim of unbroken lineage that the city used to legitimize its kings for the next 300 years would, in that scenario, be tracing back to a foreigner whose origins had been quietly absorbed into the official memory of Caracol. The Maya history we have been taught about how these dynasties began would not need a footnote. It would need a new chapter. Either answer redraws the map of ancient Mesoamerica. One confirms the Maya as skilled diplomats who pulled in the symbols of distant empires while keeping their own bloodlines. The other means the earliest royal house at Caracol was quietly foreign all along, hidden behind a jade mask and a mosaic of borrowed motifs. The version of Maya history where great cities sprang from purely local roots, untouched by central Mexico until the entrada arrived, would no longer be tenable. Principal investigator Dr. Alvarez has been careful with the framing. The team, he says, is not looking for a conqueror or a puppet. It is looking for a human life lived at the crossroads of worlds. The samples remain under Belizean stewardship. No results will be released until peer review is complete. People close to the work say the early signals do not point in the direction the textbooks predicted. What that means in practice, no one outside the research team knows until the paper appears. But the framing has shifted in private. The question is no longer whether Caracol's first king had any connection to Teotihuacan. The question is how deep the connection ran and how early it started. The bones are still talking. Right now, in a sterile lab somewhere in the Americas, a sequencer is finishing its run. The result will land in a paper. The paper will land on a desk. And then everything we thought we knew about who founded the great Maya cities will have to be rewritten or quietly defended. There is no neutral version of this result. The man behind the jade mask did not write his name in any inscription that survives. The only voice he has left is his bones. They are speaking in the language of isotopes and base pairs to scientists working under sterile light 1,700 years after his death. The conversation is one-sided, but it is happening, and the people on the receiving end already know that some of the answers do not fit. The cremation layer was already there before the entrada. The green obsidian was already there. The pyrite mirror was already there. The Maya world was tied to Teotihuacan earlier, deeper, and stranger than the timeline allowed. Whether the man in the tomb was a Maya king who reached for foreign symbols, or a foreign king whose dynasty became Maya through 3 centuries of memory, is a question the molecules will settle. And when they do, the textbook timeline of Mesoamerican history is going to need a serious rewrite. The first Maya king was supposed to be a known quantity. He is not. The DNA is going to tell us what he actually was, and the answer is already pointing somewhere the field was not ready for. The grave will not stay quiet much longer. The peer review process is moving. The lab notebooks are filling up. Somewhere on a hard drive in the Americas right now is the sequence that will end this debate, sitting in a folder that has not been opened to the public yet. When that file is released, the first Maya king stops being a mystery and starts being a problem the field has to solve in real time. Anyone watching this video has the chance to be there for that moment. If you have made it this far into the video, drop a comment with the answer you think the DNA is going to show. Maya, Teotihuacan, or something nobody saw coming. We will read every guess. If you want to be there when the next sealed Maya tomb gives up its founder, hit subscribe right now. There is another chamber being opened this season, and the bones inside are already sitting in a lab.